The room went silent the moment she stepped inside, but not because anyone noticed her, no. It was because no one expected a junior assistant to accidentally walk into a boardroom filled with the most powerful people in the company. But Elena Reyes didn't even realize she had entered the wrong room at first. She was too busy catching her breath after running up 27 flights of stairs when the elevators broke. She clutched her worn-out notebook, cheeks flushed, hair sticking to her forehead from sweat, and yet, when she nervously looked up, her eyes showed something no one in that room had seen in a long time: genuine honesty. There was no polish, no arrogance, no calculated charm. Just a tired girl trying her best to survive another day. What she didn't know was that one person in that room had been waiting for someone exactly like her. At the head of the long glass table sat Adrian Holt, the billionaire CEO with a reputation sharper than the marble floors beneath their feet. He never smiled, never joked, never trusted anyone. People said his heart had turned to stone years ago after betrayal nearly destroyed everything he built. And maybe that was true. But today, his cold eyes paused on the breathless girl who had stumbled into his meeting. Not because of her appearance, she was simple, wearing cheap heels and a shirt that had been ironed too many times, but because earlier that morning, he saw something he couldn't ignore. On the lobby cameras, he watched Elena kneel to help an elderly janitor pick up his spilled cleaning supplies while suited executives walked right past as if the man was invisible. She didn't know anyone was watching. She didn't help to impress. She helped because it was who she was. And Adrian needed someone like that more than he'd ever admit. "Elena Reyes," Adrian said, voice deep and controlled. She froze instantly, feeling every eye pierce through her. "Do you know why you are here?" She swallowed, shaking her head, wishing the floor would open up and swallow her so she could avoid embarrassing herself even more. Adrian tapped his fingers once on the table, a sound that echoed like thunder. "Earlier today," he said, "a wallet was dropped in the lobby. Thick, expensive, hard to miss. Did you see it?" Elena blinked, confused, trying to recall anything from her rushed morning. "No, sir. I didn't." Her voice trembled. Adrian leaned back, studying her like a complicated equation. Then he placed a black leather wallet on the table and slid it toward her. "Open it." Her stomach twisted. She didn't want to touch it. It felt wrong. But refusing the CEO was impossible. Hesitantly, she opened it and gasped. Inside were neatly stacked bills, more than she could ever dream of holding, and cards with Adrian Holt's name engraved in gold. Adrian watched her closely, reading every micro-expression on her face. "Take it," he said calmly. The room shifted. Some executives smirked, others hid their amusement like they already knew the game he was playing. Elena's heart pounded. "Sir, I can't." Adrian raised one eyebrow. "Why not?" She forced the words out, voice cracking. "Because it isn't mine. And even if no one would know, I would." The silence that followed felt heavy, electric, almost uncomfortable. Adrian stood slowly, and for a moment, he wasn't a ruthless CEO. He was simply a man trying to understand someone far better than himself. "Elena," he said softly, "if you had the chance to take something valuable and walk away with it, completely unnoticed, would you still refuse?" Her throat tightened. "Yes, sir. Because if I lose my integrity, then I lose everything." Another silence. This time deeper. This time powerful. No one had ever said something like that to him. Not in this room. Not in this world of greed and ambition. Adrian's jaw clenched, eyes narrowing slightly as if trying to hide a reaction he wasn't used to feeling. He looked around the table before announcing, "Elena stays for the meeting." Heads turned. Chairs stiffened. The directors looked shocked, some offended, but no one dared challenge him. Elena sat nervously at the far end of the table, shoulders trembling, wishing she could disappear. But Adrian's gaze kept drifting toward her, not with annoyance, but with curiosity. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't analyzing profits or strategies. He was analyzing her. Not her clothes or her resume, but her heart. And for a man like him, that was infinitely more valuable. What Elena didn't know was that this was only the beginning. Adrian had tested her once. He wasn't done yet. He needed to see if her kindness was real or accidental. And by the end of the day, her answer would shake the entire boardroom. And his life, Elena had never felt so out of place in her entire life. The boardroom felt like a battlefield where every word was a weapon and every glance carried judgment. She sat at the far corner of the room, hands clasped tightly in her lap, praying nobody would ask her anything. But Adrian Holt wasn't done with her, not even close. He kept watching her quietly, reading every reaction, every subtle shift in her posture. And the more he observed her, the harder it became for him to look away. She didn't know she was being watched, didn't know she had become the center of a silent test far bigger than the wallet. Adrian wanted to see who she was when the world wasn't kind to her. The meeting dragged on, filled with harsh numbers and arguments between executives who cared more about power than people. At one point, a senior director snapped at Elena because she accidentally bumped a water bottle while adjusting her chair. The bottle rolled toward the edge of the table. Elena immediately apologized, cheeks flushing from embarrassment, but the man sneered. This is why juniors shouldn't be in boardrooms. They don't belong here. A few others chuckled under their breaths. Elena looked down at her hands, trying to breathe through the humiliation. Adrian's jaw tightened. James, he said sharply, the entire room freezing. Apologize. The director blinked. Sir, now. The word struck like a command he wasn't allowed to refuse. The director swallowed and muttered a stiff apology, but the damage had been done. Elena whispered, It's okay, but her voice was barely audible. Adrian stared at her then, really stared, trying to understand how someone could be insulted and still try to make others comfortable. It didn't make sense to him, but it was exactly why he couldn't look away. The meeting resumed, but a sudden argument broke out between two executives about budget cuts. Voices rose, accusations flew, and within minutes, the boardroom turned chaotic. One of the directors slammed his hand on the table and shouted something cruel. We don't need kindness in this company. We need results. Something in Elena snapped. She didn't mean to speak. She didn't plan to. But the words left her mouth before she could stop them. Kindness is a result. The room went dead silent. Every head turned toward her. Her heart pounded painfully, but she didn't look away. Kindness builds loyalty. Loyalty builds teams. Teams build companies. If you cut kindness first, everything else falls apart eventually. The director scoffed. You think business runs on feelings? Elena swallowed. No, but it dies without humanity. Those words, simple, honest, raw, hit the room with the force of a storm. Even Adrian froze. For years he had built an empire based on discipline, strategy, and fear. But never had anyone dared tell him that humanity mattered more. And yet, hearing it from her, something shifted inside him. A door he had sealed long ago cracked open. The boardroom erupted again, this time not in anger, but in reactions. Some whispered, others looked stunned, a few even nodded. But one man spoke loudly, almost mocking her. And who are you to lecture us? You're just an assistant. Elena's voice trembled, but she didn't break. Maybe, but that doesn't make me wrong. Adrian stood slowly. Every chair went straight. Every mouth closed. He walked toward Elena, each step echoing through the room. She tensed, unsure if she was about to be fired. When he reached her, he placed his hand gently on the back of her chair, not touching her, but close enough that she felt his presence. You all heard her, he said quietly. And she's right. Gasps filled the boardroom. Adrian continued, voice steady and unexpectedly emotional. I tested her this morning. I tested her again in this room. And every time, she chose integrity, humility, and compassion, qualities most of you have forgotten. His words cut through the room like lightning. Directors exchanged uneasy glances. Then he turned to Elena, his tone softening in a way no one had ever heard. Elena, how would you run this company differently? She blinked, shocked. Sir, I'm not qualified. You're honest. That's qualification enough. Her chest tightened. She took a shaky breath and spoke softly but clearly. I would start by treating people like they matter. Even the ones no one notices. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, as if those words hit a place inside him he didn't want to expose. Then he faced the room again. Effective immediately, Elena Reyes is promoted to Ethics and Employee Relations Advisor. She will report directly to me. The boardroom erupted in whispers, disbelief, envy, shock. Elena's eyes widened. Sir, why me? Adrian held her gaze, his voice low, controlled, but filled with something deeply human. Because your kindness didn't just speak today, it broke this entire boardroom open. And maybe, it broke me open a little too. For the first time in his life, Adrian Holt smiled. Not the polite one. Not the corporate one. A real one. And Elena realized something she never expected sometimes. The most powerful people in the world aren't looking for brilliance. They're looking for someone who reminds them they still have a heart.